All right, time for another one. I want to get these out pretty quick. Ideally, if I can do the last three colors this week, um, so that I can like set this down for a little bit before Vibe Camp, and then when I come back, I can look at things like places where this list might want to change. Maybe look at some of the lists from the various small change versions that people have posted pictures of. Um, Andy from Lucky Paper Radio put out a pretty good episode that referenced this cube and was talking about hate cards, specifically looking at the role of Rest in Peace as like something that comes down really early, is really hateful to a specific strategy, and I think most important for this cube that you might not know that it exists. Like you might never see it in the draft, especially because it's part of a combo with Helm of Obedience. I would love if there was something that comboed with Helm of Obedience that uh, wasn't as punishing as Rest in Peace, but like I don't know. The best thing I can think of is Wheel of Sun and Moon, where now Helm of Obedience draws the game instead of winning the game, and like I don't know, that might just make Helm Obedience unplayable. Part of my love for this combo in this cube is just that, like, taking an opponent's creature feels like it fits within the purview of this cube. We'll see in Black and Colorless, I have, like, every version of take opponent's cards because I think that is fun. Especially in a cube where you're trying to, like, assemble a combo contraption that you can look through your opponent's deck or flip down off of your opponent's deck until you hit a creature that could help fulfill a combo. All right, black cards. Gravecrawler. There are some amount of other zombies. You can see Retrofitted Transmogrant right next to it here. That's a good example. Um, and that's one that, like, Retrofitted Transmogrant is hard to keep off the board. There are a reasonable number of combos with Gravecrawler of once you have something like a Transmogrant in play that you are spending a black mana to take some sacrifice effect, or if you're sacrificing it to something that creates black mana, then you can get infinite sacrifice triggers. Also, one of Black's themes is like supporting something like an aggro deck or like an aggro combo deck. I don't necessarily want every combo deck to be either like sort of a mid-range combo. I don't know, like a Splinter Twin, or I guess I don't have actual Splinter Twin, but like a Kiki Jiki deck could be like a mid-range type combo deck, or there are a lot of white lock decks that are sort of combo control decks. So I wanted some sort of aggro combo. We'll see. We'll see. Aggro I think is really hard to draft in this cube. The other sort of aggro archetype that I have is like the green red that could be Dragonstorm. It could be just like green red mana flare plus big things. Yeah, so this is my attempt to try to make chip damage matter for at least one color. And then of course, as we'll see later, black also has things like hatred. So having a bunch of little stinkers that can get through can be useful in that way. Retrofitted Transmogrant. It's an artifact. It's a 1-mana artifact, which also matters, I think, for some things. And then just another thing that can like end up in you discarded or milled or whatever, and then come back from your graveyard. And like I said before, that like it is a really good thing to keep your Gravecrawler combo like hard to break up. Vampire Cutthroat. I guess I should talk a little bit about Skulk. There's only like 2 or 3 cards in this cube that have Skulk, but it is, I think, a very fun evasion ability for this cube in particular. There are a lot of 0 and 1 power creatures because there's a lot of creatures with little trinkety abilities that are useful in combos. I liked the idea of Skulk because in general it's like not incredible evasion, but then later in the game, you could end up in situations where your opponent has, infinite 3/3s or something, and your Vampire Cutthroat could still get in. And, like, that's very interesting to me from the, like, your opponent went off with a combo and you still kill them through it situation. I think Lifelink is probably really surprisingly good in this cube. I have a few things with Lifelink on these little evasion creatures in black, especially, so that you can deal a huge amount but not lethal damage with Hatred and recoup the life. Also, if you get in with them early, you can end up with a life advantage on another combo deck so that you can Hatred for the full amount. So, like, that was kind of what I was thinking about here, was with these little dinky lifelink creatures. Viscera Seer is one of the, like, 5, maybe 6 free creature sacrifice outlets, and it does do something useful. I think if I might add, like, at least one more, but if I do, it needs to have less utility than Viscera Seer. Like, getting in situations where Viscera Seer can, sacrifice Gravecrawler and scry 1 for every black mana or something like that, or if you have a way to make infinite and Gravecrawler, or creature that makes mana when you sacrifice it to scry your whole deck. I think Viscera Seer is like a really good example of the kind of trinkety effect that isn't as useless as we'll see Dimir Houseguard later, where Dimir Houseguard has a free sack outlet, but it's almost literally just to be a free sack outlet. You don't care about what this does. This actually could matter. Glaze Fiend, another cheap black evasion creature that could chip in with all of the small little artifacts. There are, as we'll see, you can see even on this page, that there are a bunch of these cheap little black creatures are also artifact creatures to help Glaze Fiend just keep chipping in for 2. But also, if you have a combo that puts infinite artifacts in play, this is like a slightly better version, I think, than the white creature. Though the white creature does have lifelink. But yeah, a creature with evasion that can get in for infinite with flying is nice. Golem. Golem has a lot more combos. I'm going to resize Golem because it has so much text. Christ. I recently drafted a deck where I was trying to force sort of like red-black aggro, and Golem was extremely relevant. The part where Golem like gives you this quasi emblem that also works if you like hit it and then get back Golem. So the Golem is in play to trigger on previous like versions of itself that hit you. It obviously also has Skulk, but I absolutely killed at least one person by using the I can't remember the name, the Land Cycler that drains them for 4, because then drain them for 8 functionally. But also I have all of these little dinky lifelink creatures, so it just like marginally makes Golem deal more damage. Also, the Fling effect in black, as we'll see, gains you life. So, like, Golem allows you to double the amount of life loss from that. Reassembling Skeleton, classic combo creature. Again, trying to have a bunch of dinky creatures in black that can chip in for damage, that get recur from your graveyard. Just a lot of like useful little value there. Tiny Bones. This is another card that plays into black's theme of, can I take my opponent's cards and use them to build a combo out of? And this is one of the only discard effects that can get your opponent to discard any card. For a while, I think the only other discard like card that made your opponent discard a card was Inquisition of Kozilek. I just recently added an artifact that lets you coercion any card. But yeah, this repeated discard effect, and it's got like a small amount of graveyard hate insofar as not just if you make your opponent discard a card, but if they have some sort of like, their Rexer looping where they're trying to survival of the fittest squee, like that this gets to stash away a squee that they discard. So there's like a little bit of hate against the decks that are like building a lock out of discarding cards that come back to their hand. Vault Scourge and Wreckage Wickerfolk are kind of doing the same thing, which is that they're dinky little evasion creatures that come down early, chip in for a little bit of damage, good targets for hatred. Both artifact creatures, which I think matters. Vault Scourge's lifelink is useful in the ways that I think I described earlier when talking about Vampire Cutthroat. Wreckage Wickerfolk doesn't have lifelink, but is doing, can put things relevant into your graveyard. We've seen a few cards here that can come back from your graveyard. And also just like creating deck velocity in a combo base cube is really important. Marilyn of Mornsong. Players can't draw cards, and you get to Grim Tutor every turn. Obviously, they get to Grim Tutor first. There are a few cards like this. This is like the biggest example is Incoming, which I'll talk about when I get to green. Of like, yeah, we're just gonna let both players tutor for their combos, and you're just hoping that yours is better. This one's nice in that they like have to maybe go tutor for a removal spell to kill it, and so like can't tutor for one of their AB combos, especially if their combo like only works by them drawing infinite cards. This locks that out, so like that's nice. Obviously it stops you from drawing additional cards, but most of black ways to get additional cards are tutors, which don't count as card draw, so it was like pretty intentional. I don't know if anyone has put this in their deck yet. This also has the upside of like, I think just being a reasonable aggro creature. Like if you have this alongside, Red Eidolon and stuff, you can hopefully get into a situation where your opponent's like tutoring for pieces of their combo, and you tutor for like additional threats or a burn or whatever, and kill them before they can get their clunky combo off the ground. That's the hope. Or they just tutor for a removal spell from Maryland, and you like bolted them for 3, which is like not ideal in this cube, but like is probably fine. I also like this because if your opponent's like just let it happen, that black has one of those sort of like quote unquote one card combos in Hatred. You're like, oh, you have a Marilyn in play, and you're gonna have to tutor for 2 turns before you get anything, and then you just tutor for Hatred and kill them. So I think that's cool. They just printed the enchantment version of this in the new Lorwyn set. I like, obviously it's easier to remove Marilyn, but again, the like black is one of the aggro colors, so I think it's more important that it's a creature than that it's easily removable. Undercity Scrounger, another artifact creature, a lot of those in black. Creates treasure tokens, which are then more artifacts for various things that care about that. A lot of black's combos involve like infinite sacrifice type things, I think, or at least have some amount of sacrifice, like you're trinketing things into and out of play. And treasure tokens just make like your color requirements a little easier on top of that. So I really like cards like this. Not obviously infinite, hard to make go infinite without like a bunch of cards. I'd have to think through how many different cards you'd have to make Undercity Scrounger part of an infinite combo. But it feels like a combo card, and it does like a marginal amount of things to a bunch of different things. So I think that's good. Wall of Blood, obviously good with the fling effects. There are 2 fling effects in this cube. Both of them are sorcery speed. To just again like make it marginally harder to interact. Yeah, getting ahead on life and then just like throwing a wall of blood at someone is a very reasonable way to win the game. So it's like, with the black fling effect is similar to Hatred. Wall of Limbs. Whenever you gain life, put a counter on this, and you can sacrifice it to drain someone equal to its power. There are like 2 or 3 ways to gain life every turn, like just a little bit to tick up Wall of Limbs. This is also useful if you have a combo that gains infinite life. That this will let you, maybe not on the same turn necessarily, but like it is threatening to end the game outside of the combat step if you have infinite life without having to like deck your opponent. It still has to target your opponent, which matters for some things. It's also a wall, so it's tutorable in like, again, making combo pieces incidentally other things like walls. It's also a zombie. Yeah, just like a lot of useful lines of text on this, even if it's not like an incredibly powerful card. Dimir House Guard was not in the first draft of this cube, and that's crazy. It is exactly the kind of card I want in this cube, in that it is a 2/3 for 4 with evasion. So it's good for blacks sort of like chipping in for damage. It is a free sacrifice outlet, where if you have a way to gain an advantage and you just need a free sack outlet, it's that. And if it doesn't work as either of those things, it also is a tutor for 4 mana cards in a cube with a bunch of AV combos. Really, really useful. And maybe the thing you're tutoring for is Overchase Daredevil. Quintessential combo card. I don't think I have anything as easy to combo with it as, what is it, Underworld Cookbook? I'm trying to think if I have anything that has the text like discard a card, put an artifact into play. I can't think of any, but yeah, still obviously like really useful for any of the cards that need you to discard a card like every turn, for example. This is like another kind of squee-like effect, but obviously much more aggressively costed because it's in black. That's not to mean that like that's an essential part of black's color pie, but in this cube it kind of is, like having more cards that can chip in for damage. Pitiless Plunderer, another obvious combo card. This lets you go infinite with Gravecrawler and Viscera Seer, for example. Just like scry your deck every turn. Scourge Familiar, another classic combo card. Obviously, like, as far as efficiency goes these days, like playing a 3/2 flyer for 5 is not like incredibly aggressively costed, and it is like harder. I mean, there's still, as we'll see, there's still ways to draw cards for life, and then this lets you convert some cards into mana or whatever. And again, having another combo piece on a black creature with evasion, like this is definitely a theme of black. It is easier to chip in for damage. Salvage Titan, another black artifact creature, a creature you can play for free. That's very cool. A creature that has some ability to recur. I really like that. Scourge of Neltoth is a zombie to get back Gravecrawler, a dragon for Dragonstorm, and I have 2 little dinky creatures, and I have, milled or discarded a Scourge of Neltoth, or I played it and you killed it, and then I can replay it for 2 mana, sacrificing 2 creatures. I think just like, again, there are a lot of cards in black that aren't like obvious 2-card combos, but just have like a lot of useful trinkety pieces. There's like a version of this cube that looks a little bit more like Andy's Take 5 cube, where like Scourge of Neltoth is right in there in terms of like, here are all the neat little ways it can interact with other cards. I feel like black has like the weirdest identity in this cube in terms of it's not just combo piece, combo piece, combo piece, combo piece. That especially with the number of cards, like having all the cards of like take a card from your opponent's deck, that it has the most trinket together or something, assemble a contraption, or get in for 10 or so damage and then assemble a contraption to do the last bit of damage. Slaughter Pact is possibly unpassable in pack 1, like one of the best cards in the cube. An instant speed removal. It can't target black creatures, so it is limited in some way, but it can target expensive creatures of every other color. Just incredibly, incredibly good. Also useful for Hive Mind combo, which is one of the main reasons it's in there. But yeah, not gonna see this one going around late because it is some of the least restricted removal in the cube. Also, like free instant speed removal that you can like leave up on your opponent's turn so that it's harder for them to combo off is also like extremely, extremely important. There's not a lot of cards that can do that. Dark Ritual, it's a combo cube. I wanted Dark Ritual in there, especially given black is like not just like Slaughter Pat or Dark Ritual into Hatred early or whatever, but I wanted, because black is more likely to have to like put out a Scourge Familiar or put out a Dimir House Guard or something like that. Just like getting a jump on some of these clunkier spells, like having a way to get ahead so that you're not just trying to curve out with 1 mana or with 1 power evasion creatures. I think is like really important. Demonic Consultation. There's obviously no sort of like win the game if you draw from an empty deck combos in this cube, but there are like several ways of, if you do fully exile your deck, if you have like stuff in your graveyard to like put stuff on the bottom of your deck, which is now your whole deck, and so you could be using that to like cast the same spell every turn for the rest of the game. But the main reason Demonic Consultation is in here is for its original purpose, which is a slightly risky, really, really, really powerful tutor. Instant speed, 1 mana, just go get the other half of your combo and try to win now, and sometimes kill yourself with the hubris. That's fine by me, I think. False Cure. I think the main combo this is with White Beacon as like a 6 mana kill your opponent. Also useful for like stopping an infinite life combo, though like the most obvious one I can think of would just stop. Oh, excuse me. Would just stop doing it and then do it like on your upkeep or whatever. There's probably some versions of this. The other, like if you put this on Isochron Scepter and then have the white wall that slowly gains your opponent more and more life. One of the weaker combo cards, but I think that's fine. I think that's, this is a card that is always probably going to go, close to last, and maybe the person who has White Beacon will take it or whatever most of the time, and that's, I think, fine to have some cards that are like that like they only trinkety combo with a bunch of other things incidentally. Karavek Spite. Karavek Spite is a bad card in this cube. Just like full stop. Like black, sacrifice and discard everything. And that's an additional cost. So it doesn't work with any of the things that like copy spells, because you don't have any resources in play. Like you can float mana, and then if you have something in your graveyard that can work with it. I can't think of anything in the cube where that works for. This is just part of like black aggro, and I think Karavek Spite is just like, I don't know, it's an incredibly flavorful old card, and it's much, in my opinion, much more fun to kill your opponent with a Karavek Spite than a Lava Axe. Even though the situations where that doesn't work, you like lose the game, but there's not like a ton of instant speed. There's like 1 counter spell that can counter Karavek Spite. Not a huge number of ways to gain, say 1 life at instant speed. So like most of the time it's functionally a Lava Axe that you only cast when it wins the game. Just like a pet card that is maybe not super pulling its weight, but I love it too much to get rid of for now. Consume the Make. Instant speed Wrath, but targets things that cost 3 or less. This is like, again, I'm trying to make it easier to interact with things that cost 3 or less. I think all but one of the tappers and the blue tap untap cards are this as well. But yeah, there are just a lot of creatures that are cheap little creatures. Also really good against the sort of black aggro deck. possibly the only Wrath other than Nivenrail's disc. But again, yeah, leaning into is much, much, much easier to deal with permanents that cost 3 or less than 4 or more. I was really, really happy to have this one, though I know at least one person who has drafted this ever was like, I hate restricted removal spells. And I was like, well, maybe the cube's not for you. The cube's not for a lot of people is what I'm learning from more and more playtests. Hatred, Black's marquee card. 1 card combo with any creature that can get in. And there's a bunch of them. Inquisition, I want there to be like an early discard spell. At least one person has said, like, I wish this were a Thoughtseize. And it's like, yeah, Thoughtseize would be really, really good in this cube. A little better than I'd like. Or at the very least, if your opponent has a combo or a lock that is using multiple cards, and one of them costs less than 3, then Inquisition can get it. But if your main combo in your hand is like a bunch of clunky 5 and 6 mana cards, then Inquisition can't hit it. I like that play pattern. I like the play pattern, especially of like, you take their Ponder, and then you see which combo they are going to build towards. Like, I like that a lot better than you Thoughtseize one of their combo pieces. And then they can't build towards that combo maybe for the rest of the game, so they also have like another dead card in hand, and you have to like guess if they have other ways to win the game. Like, I like Inquisition a lot more. Feed the Swarm. Obviously the life loss can be painful if like the median creature or enchantment you are destroying costs like 5 or something. But having a way to destroy any enchantment your opponent controls is really, really good. This is a sorcery, again, to like make it harder to like stop your opponent from going off in the middle of going off. He has played a little proactively, which I like. Again, some people, I think there's like a philosophy distinction here that my most recent playtest players did not like, in terms of the like, you do your thing, I do my thing, like we're playing solitaire a little bit. It's like I vastly prefer the idea of like, I have 8-9 mana worth of clunky cards and I want to play them all in the same turn because I'm scared of Feed the Swarm, versus like, I'll play it on 4, I'll play it on 5, where if on my turn 4 I use Feed the Swarm to like kill one of your components or whatever. I like having to make those decisions. And just like, unrestricted enchantment removal is crazy powerful at almost any cost in this cube. Rite of Consumption, one of the 2 sorcery speed fling effects. Also has life gain, which combos with like a bunch of things in black. Also lets you like Hatred when you're behind on life and like hit them for 5 and then sacrifice the creature, hit them for another 5, and gain the Hatred life back. If you like haven't killed them. Yeah, just like again, a lot of little like upshot things that I think work really well in this cube. Obviously funny that like a lot of times when you cast this, you're going to gain the life at the same point that you kill them. But the times when you don't, having this like big life gains, also like incredibly powerful with Golem to like sacrifice your biggest power creature and drain them for twice that power. Praetor's Grasp, obviously not as powerful as some of the later spells that like let you cast that card with any mana in the mana cost. And as upside, like it's very cheap. Also useful to see, not just to like, here's a trinkety piece of your deck that I can use for my own combos. I can see probably every combo that your deck is trying to do and like maybe take a critical piece out of the one I'm most scared of. Also, there's not a lot of, or there's like a limited amount of interaction in each deck, so I could do the thing of like, I have my combo, I see that you have a bunch of like A's from your AB combo still in your deck, so like I don't think you have another full combo in your hand right now, so I could like take your piece of, your best piece of interaction so that you can't draw it, and that then I have that sitting off to the side. It's also pretty easy to incidentally, especially in black, have other colors. Like there are all of the I think people are probably going to be playing most of their dual lands even if they're only one color, because they're like the Scry Surveil lands, which are really good. And then black has like a bunch of incidental, has like 2 or 3 ways of incidentally making treasures. So Praetor's Grasp is going to like allow you to cast that card more often than you might otherwise think. Mastermind's Acquisition was also not in there originally, which is crazy. It's like a tutor and then a more different tutor. Like, and it's 4 mana, very clunky. Exactly the kind of card I want in this cube to assemble a contraption, especially with the sideboard searching for like assembling a contraption that you didn't think was good enough for prime time but is relevant in this matchup. Exile into Darkness. Again, exactly the kind of trinkety text that I am looking for in this cube, in that it is creature removal, only impacts cheap creatures, and if you are cards up on your opponent, then it is another one of these squee effects every turn. So that's really good. Absorb V. Absorb V is great for the like flashback copy spells deck. It's like a nice, expensive, high-end spell. I tried out a few of these that have some kind of like land cycling or recycling, so that you can use them for some utility and get them back later. The life drain is very useful for like the life gain sub-theme that black has. Yeah, just a great all-around card that, as you've seen, is sort of like the meta theme of black, is that a lot of these cards like work well with a lot of different things in black in ways that are not obvious 2-card combos, but like that you could assemble a contraption. Blood Fountain, a trinkety artifact, also creates another trinkety artifact. That trinkety artifact also has discard synergy, and then also you can get creature cards back. Like this is like kind of exactly the kind of thing. Also, because it can get 2 creature cards back from your graveyard, if you have a 2-card combo that is both creatures, Blood Fountain can act as a way to get back the whole combo, which I think is really good. Sphere of Annihilation. Oh, yeah, there is another Wrath in this cube. I'm sure I'll find there's like a 4th one that I can't think of. Only hits creatures. Also exiles things from graveyards. There's, I think, only 1 Planeswalker in the whole cube, so this is mostly just for creatures. This is sort of the level of graveyard hate that I'm looking for in terms of like this versus Rest in Peace. I think Rest in Peace is like will likely end up leaving, and maybe that means that Helm will end up leaving, because it sucks to like see Helm and for that to be a trap, or for the best thing that you can do with Helm is like steal your opponent's creatures the sort of natural way, or use Wheel of Sun and Moon to draw the game instead of win it. I think I'm in general moving away from cards whose only way, like the only thing they do is draw the game. Like that doesn't feel very fun. Also, Sphere of Annihilation interacts with things that put counters, and they're like, you know, there's the white enchantment that lets you not put counters on things, cancels out this Wrath, which is fun. And then the red card that deals damage based on counters you put on things is also like a reasonable interaction with this. It has like a fireball effect. Mostly just a slow interaction with the graveyard and with creatures in play. Also, one of the rare ways to deal with creatures that cost more than 3. Vorpal Sword, giving an equipment bonus and death touch, works well with the trinkety evasion that black has going on. Not just for like chipping in for damage, but then ultimately a way to just outright win the game by phage killing them with your sculpt creature or whatever. Wishclaw Talisman is, again, this is like a better version of Marilyn most of the time, probably, in terms of like I get my combo piece first and then maybe I kill you before you get to use it. I think it is also okay. Like that is the most common use when it's in other cubes, like powered cubes. I think it might just more likely be used in this cube where like I tutor, you tutor, I tutor, and the game still continues, or like the game doesn't end until you give me my second tutor. So I like that. Crowded Crypts, another way to get a little bit ahead on mana in black. And then it can convert infinite sacrifices into infinite creatures. Um, so that's like very nice, and like probably won't be a high pick. So like whichever deck is looking for that probably will have some amount of black in it, because since there are most of the free sacrifice outlets are in colorless or black. Um, so again, it's like a nice that it is a like useful card for other things that is also could be your like deal infinite damage win condition, but also like has to win in combat. Um, but that like you'll probably get this pretty late. No, not a lot of people taking this. Glass Cast Heart. Again, continuing the sort of like black trinkety artifact theme. Blood tokens I think are really good in this cube. Also kind of like a little unspoken. Another way to get a bunch of life gain triggers for the things that care about that by making these 1/1 lifelink tokens. And then also like kind of an alternate win condition, which is nice, which is fun. Haven't seen anything close to that happen yet. And how many are there other vampires? I want to search for vampire. Are there no right type vampire? Sure, there are 2 vampires. And I will say those are 2 vampires where at least Viscer Seer is probably getting played in most pools that drafted. Vampire Cutthroat might be too. I think Vampire Cutthroat is probably underrated. But most of the time you're just going to be, if you end up triggering the final ability here, it will be by attacking with all the little vampires that you build, all these vampire tokens. Though blood tokens are like so useful that you might never get there. Pact Weapon, nice way to not lose to infinite damage, life loss, attacking, etc., etc. And card draw on infinite like on not on infinite, on little trinkety evasion creatures, so like works really well with that. Also an infinite discard outlet if you need it, or if you have like squee type effects. Yeah, again, another card that like every little piece of it is doing something useful in this cube. Grim Captain's Locker. This is like one of the cards I have my eye on in terms of like, is it good enough? Like having another black artifact that like surveils and then also allows you to get creatures back from your graveyard to make it hard to like break up your creature-based combos. Like, I think it's good enough. Like, I think it is doing a thing, and you know, black is one of the rare colors that can like get a lot of things back from the graveyard pretty efficiently. For some definition of pretty efficiently, I guess this is very reasonably inefficient for most cubes, but I think there's also like something to be said for if you are not doing any of the mainline black things that I spent a lot of time talking about. Black is like a really good support color with things like this and Blood Fountain in terms of I have a little splash for inevitability engines. And this isn't like literal infinite inevitability, but it has a lot of inevitability associated with it. Dance of the Dead. The version of this that I have in my cube is someone made a full text version. I am using this version specifically, for example, like because the thing enters tapped, it means that if you're doing this with like a haste creature, you can't surprise someone with it. I wanted some version, some cheap version of this effect, especially for World Gorger Dragon, which we'll see in red, as a way to like make infinite mana or whatever with World Gorger Dragon. And yeah, making something like a little bit bigger, but having it tapped and you having to pay mana every upkeep to untap it is like kind of exactly the level of clunkiness that I'm okay having a thing that can also like take cards from your opponent. Also, because it can hit your opponent's graveyard, it plays into Black's theme of having as many of the ways of like, I take your thing, I use your thing to make combo. Bastion of Remembrance. I wanted a Blood Artist effect, and having it on an enchantment, even that costs 3 or less, is like marginally harder to interact with. Is like a thing that I wanted. It's marginally harder to interact with once it's in play. It also only triggers off of your creatures, so like it works with an infinite sacrifice thing on your side, but it doesn't stop your opponent's infinite sacrifice thing from happening. It's possible that this should just be Blood Artist, that like it counters their thing and helps your thing. I'm always really nervous putting Blood Artist in low power cubes. Like I feel like that's like level 0, one of the most, like if I see a cube that's otherwise like sort of pauper level power and I see a Blood Artist in the list, like I think that is one of the easiest decks to make too good in a quote unquote normal cube, is the like Aristocrats style deck. So using Bastion here was like maybe a little nervous about how good this is. We'll see later. There's like ways to, I mean, we've seen already, there's like ways to make a bunch of tokens and stuff, but yeah, maybe this will end up being Blood Artist if this is not good enough. Out of the Tombs is like a more recent addition. I think it's just really fun. It also is like for the red card whose name I keep forgetting, of like put counters on things to deal damage. Works with that. And just a really fun card that like puts stuff in your graveyard when you have a lot of ways to get things back from your graveyard, and then ultimately just be in a position of returning a bunch of stuff for free, possibly losing the game. Yeah, just like really plays into the themes of this cube. Recurring Nightmare, talked about it already a little bit up at the top, but like a very classic combo card. Hard to make go infinite. But you know, you can feel the sort of accelerating advantages when you have it in play. And is, I think, not, you know, is very dependent, like a lot of these sort of like creature reanimation cards, on how good the creatures are that you're reanimating. And like, you know, if like the best creature you're reanimating is like a Scourge of Neltoth or a Revelark, then I think this card is like a lot more fair than if you're cycling Archon of Cruelty into and out of play over and over again. Haunting Wind is kind of a pure sideboard card. I just wanted another way they would interact that would interact with infinite artifact combos. So it's like purely a sideboard hate card. But I really liked that black had a card to like interact with those trinkety things. Tombstone Stairwell. This is like maybe the biggest argument for Blood Artists, because this is double-sided, so it like kills twice as fast with a Blood Artist versus a Bastion in play. It's just really fun. Like, everyone on each upkeep getting haste zombies equal to the number of creatures in their graveyard, and then you like want to attack and your opponent also has zombies that can block and stuff, and then each turn they all die and then like come back each upkeep over and over again. Like, I think this card is really, really powerful, especially if you are playing more of like an aggro deck or whatever. Like, you have a higher creature density than your opponent that is playing like a bunch of non-creature combo pieces or whatever. This card can do a lot of damage, and you get to keep it in play. Like, it will immediately trigger on your opponent's upkeep, and then it'll trigger on your upkeep, and then your opponent's upkeep, and then your upkeep, and then your opponent's upkeep, and then on the next upkeep, you can stack. Even if you don't get up to 6 mana, you can stack the triggers so that you get all of your tomb spawns one last time, and then don't pay cumulative upkeep, and then they all get destroyed by Tombstone Stairwell. And like, that's a lot of value for a card even if you can't pay more than 4 cumulative upkeep. If you have things that matter for creatures dying. Man, do I want to make Blood Artist this Blood Artist? We'll see. Givering Descent. Yeah, I think having a way to skip your upkeep step might matter for things. I can't think of anything off the top of my head except for Givering Descent as like a very early, very clunky version of the kind of thing that Wizards prints all the time now, of like it combos with itself. In this case, like makes you discard cards until eventually you skip your upkeep and then you stop losing life. It's also something that you can like madness out early, and it is one of the rare ways to make your opponent discard, and this is like another tiny bones in that way. I think it's pretty playable. Also something that you could like break parity on if you have a squee effect or whatever. Also, I mean, obviously if they have a squee effect, then it's like, you know, bad in the other direction, but there aren't an infinite number of those. Null Profusion. I'll probably hit on it when I see Recycle. This and Recycle are both in the cube, and I think they're good. I think they're actually good. I feel like most people's view of this and Recycle are that it's like too expensive for the thing you're trying to do, but this is just a cube about like clunky cards and combos. Most of the time when you play this, your maximum hand size is 2 will not matter. This will be like one of the last cards you play, and then as long as you have like another card, you just, I guess if you have the like problem is that if you like play this and you don't have a land and a card, that you're like playing a card each turn or whatever, and like if they're clunky enough, you're not even sort of like doing more than if you were just drawing a card every turn. But the times when you're not doing that, I think it's pretty easy to like develop an overwhelming advantage with these 2 cards. And I might have to, the next time I draft this, if I am a drafter in it, I might have to like try to get this card or Recycle in my deck, because I think it is like, I think most people recognize this effect as being kind of slow, clunky, not good enough, and so I think there are probably decks that have been drafted that this should be in, and it's not, because people like know that quote unquote this card is bad. Bargain. Had to have Bargain, man. Works well for converting resources into other resources. One of the original sort of like combo deck cards, and it's a big clunky 6-mana enchantment. And I guess that also works with like there are the like replenish open the vaults effects, but I think a lot of times you're just gonna like slam this into play and then draw, you know, 5 cards or something. I think, you know, this is obviously in most cases better than Null Profusion, but for this cube in particular, like, not crazy better. I mean, I guess if, you know, again, if you have ways of gaining life, etc., like being able to draw 7 or something immediately is really, really, really powerful. But I think these 2 cards, 2 last black cards, are closer than most people think in this cube in particular. Especially if you are like getting behind on life, though. Again, black has like sort of a life gain thing to use Bargain more fairly, right? In like the original Necro way of like, I am using a drain life to kill you, but also so that I can like draw more cards off of my Bargain or my Necro. Don't have Necro in here, which like could be a mistake, but yeah, just trying to allow things that are slightly clunkier to shine. All right, that is all of black. Let's look at a pack. Got some powerful temples and Surveil lands. I love a Mana Flare. Phyrexian Altar. Revelark is like a pretty reasonable combo and a powerful creature. Man, I love, you know, it's going to take me a while to get there, but I love Portcullis. I think Portcullis is like a very useful lock piece that is like quote unquote fair. Um, I think for me, the top two things to choose here are either Phyrexian Altar. It's a free sack outlet. It's easy to build towards a deck that can use a free sack outlet in this cube. Um, and this particular sack outlet allows you to like make mana of any color, so it also like helps you string together multiple colors. It's probably one of the best. It's like probably up there in the top two free sack outlets, with the other one being Blasting Station for like best free sack outlets in the cube, and both colorless, so they like will almost always make your deck. Or Sentinel Dispatch. I've seen Sentinel Dispatch go, like fourth or fifth, and it's not very powerful on rate. But like, man, people still don't know how good conspiracies are. It's just a free 8th card in your hand that says like 0 mana, 1/1 artifact defender. It will always make your deck. Whoever drafts it will always play it on turn 0 every game for the rest of the day, the rest of the draft. And there are things that care about defenders. There are things that care about trinkety artifacts. It's just like the main reason why you might not want to put this in a cube is that it like hates on aggro too much, and there aren't a lot of aggro decks. So like, I think this is like a pretty reasonably costed conspiracy in terms of like the thing you get for free, in a way that I wouldn't want this to be in almost any other cube, because it just gives free hate to aggro decks. If you're playing a Savannah Lions type thing, if your cube has like can do that in several colors, it fucking sucks to play your Savannah Lions deck and then your opponent reveals Sentinel Dispatch on turn 0. But in this cube, I have tried to make it not quite as good, but it's still just like a free 8th card in your hand every game. So I would probably take Phyrexian Altar here. I'm like trying to track a little bit what colors of the cards that I'm taking, but so like it did not escape my notice that Revelark feels like number 3 in terms of power level, and then I feel like I've paid more attention to white cards. It's like white. Does white have more first pickables, or is the way that I'm playing where I'm like trying to stay open a little bit in the first pick and not go all in on like a 2-card combo? Yeah, unclear. Unclear if this says something about the cube or something about my draft patterns, but I think those are the obvious top two, with like Revelark being a distant third, I think. All right, and when I come back, it will be time for red.